One shot can change everything. In snooker, where matches can go on for hours and players battle frame by frame, it's remarkable how a single moment can shift the entire course of a career. For Tony Knowles, that moment came in 1983 at the Crucible Theatre, and it involved a pink ball that's still being talked about over 4 decades later. Tony Knowles arrived at the 1983 World Championship with serious momentum. The Bolton player had already stunned the snooker world a year earlier by demolishing Steve Davis 10-1 in the first round of the 1982 World Championship. Davis was the defending champion at the peak of his powers, and Knowles absolutely tore him apart.
Well, I first played him as an amateur,
right,
2 times and beat him.
Right.
That's why I was pretty confident when I come up against him in the World Championship.
Yeah. What age would that be?
This confidence showed on the table during their match. Tony kept Davis under pressure from the very start and never let up. By 1983, Knowles was flying. He had climbed up the world rankings and was playing some of the best snooker of his life. This felt like his moment. At 28 years old, he had the experience, the technique, and that natural flair that made everything look effortless. The journey to the semi-finals wasn't easy, but Tony handled each challenge like a man destined for greatness. He knocked out quality opponents one by one and built confidence with every victory. Each win reinforced the belief that this was his time to claim the ultimate prize. Standing in Tony's way in the semi-final was Cliff Thorburn, the methodical Canadian who had won the world title in 1980. Thorburn was known for his safety play and mental toughness, exactly the kind of opponent who could grind out a result when the pressure was on. The match was a classic battle of styles, Thorburn's calculated approach against Tony's natural attacking instincts. Frame after frame, neither player would give an inch. As the frames ticked by, Tony found himself in the driving seat. He was leading 15-13, just 1 frame away from his World Championship final. 1 more frame and he would be facing whoever came through the other semi-final with a real chance to become world champion. And that moment arrived shortly. Tony was at the table, colours on their spots, needing a straightforward clearance to seal his place in the final. But as Tony got down to assess the blue, something wasn't quite right.
And as you know, as you get into a certain position on the table, you think you're just going to automatic overdrive and knock the balls in. But unfortunately, what I didn't realise is that the pink was 2 inches off its own spot.
2 inches doesn't sound like much, but in snooker, it might as well be 2 miles. The normal routine clearance Tony had planned was suddenly impossible. The angle he had been expecting simply wasn't there. Tony had to make a split-second decision: adapt to the new situation or trust his instincts and play the shot he'd practiced countless times. Under that kind of pressure, with a World Championship final on the line, muscle memory takes over. He struck the blue perfectly. The ball flew into the middle pocket exactly as planned. The cue ball came off the bottom cushion with that trace of side spin just as he had intended. The white ball had travelled too far. Instead of sitting perfectly for a simple pot on the pink into the corner, Tony was now tight on the cushion. The straightforward clearance had become a much more difficult proposition.
Oh, and he's missed it.
The crowd gasped. Thorburn's eyes widened as he realised his World Championship wasn't over. Tony stood at the table, watching his dream slip away with 1 missed pot. Thorburn didn't waste his reprieve. He got back to the table and cleared up, taking the frame and bringing the match back to 15-14. The momentum had shifted completely. Tony, who had been 1 shot away from the final, was now facing a nervous finish. Thorburn won the next 2 frames to take the match to 16-15. Tony's World Championship was over, decided by a pink ball that was 2 inches off its spot. The confidence that had carried him through the tournament was shaken to its core. Years later, Tony would look back on that moment with painful clarity. Tony knew he should have played a different shot when he realised the pink was in the wrong spot. But under pressure, he stuck with what felt natural and familiar.
The corner pocket, and I ended up playing the same shot as I normally do, off the bottom cushion with check side, and I ended up on the cushion
for the black
to play a straight pink in the corner, which made the pink a lot more difficult. And the shot I really should have played was to drop in behind the pink and play the pink in the middle pocket. It would have been easy.
In that moment, with everything on the line, Tony had trusted his instincts. Those same instincts that had gotten him to the semi-final in the first place. But sometimes, even your best isn't enough. After that day, Tony started thinking too much during matches. He felt pressure to perform better and tried to control every shot instead of letting his natural ability take over. This made his game worse, not better.
Everything was like natural instinct.
Yeah.
After that day, when I come into that match and I'm thinking, right, I've got to turn this around and I've got to play my shots, I couldn't play. I couldn't get the timing right. Because everything I did was just natural instinct.
Yeah.
So after that, I struggled for a bit.
During his chat with Stephen Hendry, Tony opened up about his unusual path to the top. His snooker journey started when his dad took over a conservative club in Bolton. Tony started playing there when the club was closed, without the members knowing he was using their tables. When Tony was about 11 or 12, he played competitively for the first time. An older club member was waiting for his partner and asked young Tony if he wanted to play a few shots. The man was surprised when Tony beat him easily. Tony's amateur career took off quickly. At 16, he won the British Junior Championships. Then he won a big tournament at Rex Williams's place in Birmingham, beating Willie Thorne, who was the favourite to win. Tony turned professional in 1980, joining a tour that was very different from today's packed schedule. Back then, there weren't many tournaments like today. Players had to be good at exhibition matches to make money. Those exhibition matches were crucial for making a living. Tony played in clubs all over Lancashire, honing his skills and building his reputation. It was a different world from the modern tour, where players can focus purely on tournament play. The early 1980s were when Tony played his best snooker. He was ranked in the world's top 4 for several years. Every player on tour was afraid to play against him because he was so good. Tony believed he was one of the best players in the world in 1983, and he was right. Until that pink ball miss changed everything about his game. Tony reached the World Championship semi-finals again in 1985 and 1986, but he never quite recaptured that magical form from 1983. The natural instincts that had served him so well were replaced by overthinking and doubt. The irony was that Tony was now spending more time practicing, trying to get back what he had lost, but the harder he tried, the more difficult it became to find that natural flow. Tony's career was also hurt by problems away from the snooker table. In 1984, he was involved in a controversial newspaper story that created a lot of media attention. The attention was overwhelming and made it even harder for him to play his natural game. The media attention was something Tony hadn't expected when he became a professional player. He was only interested in playing snooker and didn't think about all the other things that came with being famous.
Snooker was huge, wasn't it?
I didn't realise exactly what was going on at the time.
I mean, massive. I mean, how...
All I was interested in at the time was just playing snooker, and I just took everything else as like...
So whose idea was it for the article?
I took it all for granted.
Whose idea was it to do the article?
Despite the problems in his later career, Tony's technique was still amazing. His follow-through was legendary among players and fans. When he showed Stephen Hendry his technique years later, Hendry was impressed by how smooth it still was.
Oh, that follow-through.
Tony's technique came naturally to him. He never had formal coaching lessons. Instead, he learned by watching other players and practicing in his father's club. He started playing when he was 9 years old, learning just by watching 2 old men play. When Tony looked back on his career during his conversation with Stephen Hendry, he was philosophical about what might have been. He knew he had been good enough to win the World Championship. He had the talent and the opportunity, coming within 1 shot of reaching the final. By the time Tony retired in 2000, he had earned over £300,000 in prize money. This was good money for his era, but it was nowhere near what he might have earned if he had won the World Championship. Tony Knowles may not have won the World Championship, but he still had a big impact on snooker. And that's a wrap on today's video. What do you think Tony Knowles could have achieved if he had won that 1983 World Championship? Would it have changed snooker history? Let us know what you think in the comments. And for more snooker content, click the screen below.